Welcome everyone. Welcome to this webinar on nourishment and how to feel more nourished in 2020 and how to feel more nourished not only in your body but at all levels, which also includes your mind, your heart, and your soul. I'll share my screen here. So today, as you're joining, feel free to write where you're joining us from. Where do I see the chat panel? Okay, here. So I see there's people from the Pacific Northwest, from New York City, Northeast Wisconsin, and I'm up here in Quebec, Canada. So it's so fun to see that people are joining from all over. And I know that many people will be listening to the recording later, and that's completely fine. Oh, Middle Tennessee, 70 degrees here. Oh my God, I'm jealous. We have so much snow, and yeah. You need those scarves and coats and boots, but it's okay. Spring will come. It always does, right? So as I was saying earlier, I have a bit of a cough, so I may need a few tea breaks. So let's get started. I know that you all have so many different things you could be doing right now, and I so really appreciate that you're here with me right now, ready and willing to learn more about nourishment and what it truly means and how to make more space for it in your life and how to feel more nourished within yourself in 2020, because it can make such a huge difference in how much of you can be and how much of you can be in your life and what you can bring around you. So we'll spend this webinar will be no more than an hour. I'll keep an eye on time, and we'll have some practical sections. So let's jump right into it so that, I promise, my promise here is, because there's just so many things you could be doing, and I really, really acknowledge you for being here right with me right now, learning about nourishment. So I'll be very mindful and respectful of your time. And I also guarantee that I'll make this value packed for you and that you feel nourished by the end of this webinar. So, here are the talking points, but let's just go right into it. So just a little bit about my story. Some of you may know me from many years ago. I started having an online presence back in 2010, 2011. And back then I was doing more work around nutrition and gut health and more clinical nutrition and that kind of things. And it has evolved over the years where I have learned how, nutrition and food is so important, but there's so much more that we need to feel not only healthy at all levels, but to feel more like us and to get us unstuck on the healing journey so that we can be us more than we ever have, which has ripple effects in every single areas of our life. So like, all human beings, we are all born connected to ourselves, connected to our needs, and knowing what nourishment feels like. And when we don't feel nourished, we're pretty quick at letting others around us know that we're not feeling nourished, whether it is because we need milk, or we need a diaper change, or we need to be held. We know how to feel nourished. This is inherent to our programming as human beings. But to me, and for every human being, there are things that happen from a very young age and throughout our life that cause us to feel like there's something wrong with us, or that our needs are not important, or that we should be more responsible. There's so many things that can happen that can make us take on certain beliefs that cause us to disconnect from ourselves and to forget about this concept of nourishment, what it means, what it feels like, what it matters, and what we need to feel more nourished. So this is what happened to me. Of course, there is always many different events that can lead to this disconnection and to this forgetting. But one of the major ones for me was when I was transitioning between elementary school and high school. I was 12 at the time, and I had what I thought was a good group of friends. But during the summer, before entering high school, I received a card from them by the mail saying that they no longer wanted to be my friend, that didn't like the way I dressed or the way that I styled my hair, and that they were ashamed of being seen with me. And for that reason, they didn't want to go to keep me as a friend going into high school. So of course, at that age, it was devastating for me. And I took on the belief that people felt ashamed to be with me. And I took on the belief that there was something wrong with you. And from that point, I did everything I could to try to quote unquote fix myself, change myself. And I directed a lot of that energy towards my external appearance, since it's, you know, that's the easiest thing to fix, or so we think. So yeah, and that lasted for basically 2 decades of my life, feeling like there was something wrong with me, feeling like there was something missing, trying to fix myself in all the ways, but never really being able to find this missing little something that could allow me to feel whole and complete and to feel like myself again. And that, you know, I'm sure that you can have, you all have different stories that led you to take on some beliefs that are perhaps the same or perhaps a little different, but very similar, that yeah, that led you to disconnect from yourself in some ways, whether it is from your body, from your mind, your heart, your soul, and to forget about how, you know, to forget what it means to nourish yourself. But the good news is that no matter how long it's been, we can all remember. And today we'll talk a lot about nourishment, of course, but also how nourishment, the art of nourishment, is really about bringing more softness to ourselves and within ourselves, and how the softness that allows us to bring more nourishment to ourselves and to receive more nourishment creates more strength within ourselves and around ourselves. And it will become more clear what I mean by that by the end of the webinar. But what is important to know right now is that for most of us, I'm sorry, as we go through our life and we try to move forward on our healing journey, whatever it is we're trying to heal from, or however it is that we're trying to grow and evolve and become the best version of ourselves, we usually go at it from a perspective of trying harder, trying more things, doing more, like reading more books, doing more exercises, taking out more foods from our diet to do a more thorough elimination diet, or doing it for longer. There's a lot of harshness and pushing and trying harder. And what happens with that is that it is actually very, very depleting for us at many levels, at the physical level, but also at the mental and emotional level. So a lot of what allows us to receive more nourishment and to stop being so hard and harsh on ourselves is to bring more softness. And this may sound counterintuitive because you know, we've all have this image of the football coach that's just, you know, yelling into someone's ears like, more push-ups, try harder. And that's how we are being with ourselves. But if we think about, you know, if you are a parent, if you have a child or children, or even if you're not a parent, but if you can imagine, you know, being around children, like, how would you encourage them? You wouldn't be like that football coach yelling into their ear that it should just, you know, try harder and push harder, even if it hurts. No, there would be a whole lot of softness, And now it's time to bring that softness back towards ourselves, because it truly is the key to allow us to receive, to first give ourselves, and secondly, receive more of that nourishment that we all need and deserve so much. So what does it mean to feel more nourished? I just have to move the little screens of names so I can read. Okay, so it's a whole spectrum. And many of you may have felt nourished at different degrees at different points in your life. So wherever you're at, it's okay. And those words, you know, emotions are very hard to put into words sometimes. So there's just a general idea of what it looks like. It's more like a signpost of what nourishment can feel like in those different parts of yourself, but it may feel and look different for you. So in the body, most people would describe feeling nourished as feeling light and connected within, which would be, on the spectrum of things, it would be in a position to feeling disconnected and empty and weighted down. At the mind level, feeling nourished is more of that feeling of calm and peace, and like there's spaciousness between the thoughts, as opposed to these very critical thoughts, this kind of spiraling chaos, like all of these tornadoes of thoughts swirling around us, and this sense of overwhelm, which would be the opposite of feeling nourished in the mind. At the heart level, feeling nourished is feeling this aliveness, because we can feel like the whole spectrum of emotion and feeling alive with a lot of acceptance and compassion. That is very, very nourishing to the heart. And that would be as opposed to feeling numb or being completely disconnected from our feelings. And at the soul level, nourishment feels like being very trusting and having the ability to find joy and beauty in all the little things that surround us. And the flip side of that, when we're feeling undernourished or malnourished at the soul level, we can feel very alone and like there's no point to it all. So wherever you're at for these different parts of you is completely fine, because you're at the right place right now, where we can learn how to bring more nourishment to your body, your mind, your heart, and your soul. So of course, who wouldn't want to feel nourished? We all want to feel nourished. So the question is, why? Why are we not able to feel nourished at all time? Well, it's because there are barriers to nourishment, and those barriers, vary from one person to another, and at different phases of our life also. So notice, before coming to this webinar, what kind of thoughts were in your head telling you that you shouldn't, and there would be better things to do. Perhaps whether it's about coming to this webinar or doing any other nourishing things in your life, or anything that is just for you. What kind of excuses or thoughts do you have in your mind? Do you hear things like, oh, you don't have time, you have better things to do or more important things to do, you need to be responsible? Or perhaps you simply just, you're like someone that has a hard time slowing down, because nourishment doesn't happen at Google speed. We need to slow down to really tune in to our needs and be able to receive that nourishment. Just like digestion doesn't happen at Google speed, receiving nourishment also needs to happen at a slower pace. For some people, it can actually be scary to slow down and connect with ourselves, because there's a fear of being present with ourselves. There's a fear that if we get to feel what is inside of us, it's just going to open the floodgate and we're going to become overwhelmed with it and not know what to do with it. Perhaps we're not used to nourish ourselves simply because we haven't made it a habit. We haven't had any role model of what this could look like. Perhaps we're a people pleaser and we're used to put everyone else first. People, we just haven't been taught how to value our own self-care. And perhaps we just simply don't know what our needs are. So, in the chat box, I'd love to hear from you which of these resonate the most with you, which of these are more present with you. Yeah, what are the biggest barriers to nourishment in your life? And there's a little note here at the top right of the screen that notice that these barriers to nourishment are barriers that are present in many different areas of your life, and that can stop you from doing a lot of these things that truly matter to you. So it's very important to pay attention to those barriers. So let's, do a little check-in right now. Let's slow things down a little bit. And I know that we'll just close our eyes for like 30 seconds. And I know some of you may be like rolling their eyes. I don't want to do that. I don't want to connect with myself. And it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to. It will only be 30 seconds, but I highly encourage you to. If you're one of these people that have been reading a lot of books, but have a tendency to skip over the exercise section of their journaling exercises, raise your hand. That was me. Well, I completely understand, but sometimes it's important to try something different if we want things to shift, because if we keep doing things the same old ways, then we tend to stay stuck wherever we are. So I'm saying that with a lot of love and compassion. So even if you have a part of you that doesn't want to check in with you and doesn't want to close your eyes, just give it a try, just 30 seconds. So let's just close our eyes together and take 3 big breaths, because the breath is really the best way to slow down, to press the pause button of our life. And as we breathe deeply, I invite you to just imagine yourself putting your life down, because you don't have to carry it all the time. You can put it down. And as we're just breathing deeply here with our life down on the table by our side, we can imagine ourselves pushing the past further back, because we don't need it here right now. It has already happened. There's no need to be simmering in it. And we can also imagine ourselves pushing the future further ahead. It hasn't happened, and we don't even know what's going to happen in the future. All we know is the right here, right now. And as you're breathing deeply, I invite you to put a hand on your heart. If that feels comfortable to you, just notice. You may feel your heart beating inside of your chest, your heart that has been beating for you since you were four week old in the womb of your mother. And now I'm going to ask you this question. How nourished are you feeling right here, right now, and this moment? Imagine a scale of 0 to 100. And don't try to figure out the answer in your mind. That's not where the answer is. As you breathe deeply, drop down into your heart and your body. And just ask yourself, how nourished am I feeling right now? On a scale of 0 to 100. And whatever number first comes to you, whether you hear it, you see it, you know it, or you just feel it, trust that it is the right number. And if you don't receive a number, it's okay. It's just a matter of practicing connecting with yourself. And we're just practicing right now. So after you've received this number, and it's okay if you haven't, let's just thank ourselves for being willing to connect with ourselves and to slow down. Take one final deep breath and open your eyes when you're ready. And I'd love to hear what number you got. Oh, I see some of the barriers that some of you shared: lack of time, putting others first, especially with 4 kids. Oh my God, I could not even imagine. And Kristen was saying that others come first, and just not having the habit. Like, nobody taught us in elementary school or high school how to nourish ourselves. But that should be like a very important topic that everybody gets to learn about. But the good news is that it's never too late, and we're right here, right now, learning about it. So what number did you receive on a scale of 0 to 100? You can write it in the chat box. And just be aware that whatever the number is, it doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of noticing, because it doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person if the number is low, or a good person if the number is high. That's not how it works. It just reflects your current state of nourishment. So I have some 25 here, 35. So for a lot of people, this number is going to be very low, because we just haven't been taught how to better nourish ourselves. We have an 88, a 50, a 60. So there's a whole range of different numbers here. So just noticing where we're at. And no matter what the number is, the good news is that we can always nourish ourselves even more to bring that number higher. And it's not that the number matters at all. The number is just a matter of us for us to notice where we're at. But what really matters is how we feel. And the more nourished we feel, well, usually the more whole and complete we feel, and the more prepared we feel to face the world. I'm just going to mute myself. Okay, so let's keep going. So right now, I want you to think about, what is the cost of feeling undernourished in those different aspects of your life? What is the cost on your health? And I can let you read some of the example of the cost that it could have on your health as I save my voice. What is the cost on your relationships, on your career and parenting, and on how you feel in your life? So right now, you may feel a heaviness, and it's okay. It's just sometimes we don't take the time to slow down and really notice, what is this costing me? And when we take the time to feel it, it can feel really heavy because we see how this undernourishment or this lack of nourishment has ripple effects in all areas of our life. And again, this is not your fault. You've been doing the best that you can. It's just a matter of becoming more aware of that, because the more aware we are of that, the better we become at shifting this. So this is, there are two types of motivation. This would be the push away motivation, what we no longer want. Once the cost becomes too high to pay, then we're more willing to change. And this is one type of motivation that is really important to get us started. And in a little bit, we talk about a pull towards motivation, which is what we want to go towards instead, which is often the missing step in any kind of habits we're changing. Usually, at some point, the cost becomes so high that we become very aware of it and we want to get away from that. But what we forget is to also think about our pull toward motivation, what we want to go towards. And if we don't have that, then usually the new habits don't stick for very long. So now that we've noticed the cost and felt the heaviness of it, we won't stay there in the heaviness, let's go to the pull toward motivation. What would be possible for you and your life if you truly felt nourished at all levels in your body, mind, heart, and soul? And perhaps you don't have a clear answer, but perhaps you can see that so much could be possible, things beyond what you can even imagine right now. Perhaps you have this feeling of the sense of expansion within you, this feeling that there is this possibility for more freedom for you to be the full you, to be more expressed in your life, to not have fears stop you, to have more energy to do the things that truly matter to you. So what would be possible for you and your life if you felt more nourished at all levels? So let's take 3 to 5 minutes. We've already touched on all 4 of these questions here, but what I would like you to do, if you have a journal or a piece of paper, is to take, I'll give you just like 3 to 5 minutes so that you can write it down. And I invite you to use like an old-fashioned, like real pen and paper to write, not the computer or your phone or iPad, because when we handwrite, we're able to access different areas of our brain that allows us to connect to deeper parts of ourselves and our subconscious. So take a moment to journal on these questions. Question number 1 is, how nourished are you feeling right now? You already received your number. We did that together. And perhaps you can even break it down. How, is there a specific number for your body, for your mind, for your heart, and your soul, each on a scale of 0 to 100? And again, no judgment here, just with curiosity, noticing, and remembering that whatever the number is, the good news is that it can always, we can always improve it and add more nourishment. Number 2 is, what are your barriers to nourishment right now? What do you hear in your head, that says that you don't have time to take care of yourself better, or it's just not worth it for you? What are those barriers? And then what is the cost on these different aspects of your life? And the last question, what do you desire? What would be possible for you if you felt nourished at all levels? So I'll give you a few minutes to just journal on this, and I'll be right back. And I know that some of you may not want to do this. Perhaps, there are some of you that are the ones that, used to skip the exercise section and journaling practices whenever reading a book or listening to a webinar just like this. And it's okay, just notice. What are you hearing? Where is this resistance coming from? Are your thoughts saying that you don't need this? That you don't need help? Just notice, because those thoughts are the same thoughts that are probably keeping you from feeling more nourished in your life. Again, no judgment, just what it is. Those thoughts don't mean anything about you. They're just patterns, ways of thinking, limiting beliefs that we inherit from other people's around us, from society, from things that have happened in the past. So just be curious with it. Become more aware with it, and see if you can try changing your habits so that you can start changing the way you think. So we'll keep going now to be mindful and respectful of your time, but I'll be sending this slide, or you can take a screenshot right now because I'll be changing the slide soon, and you can come back to it later, or tomorrow on the email I'll send a recording of this, and you'll also have the slides. But there will be more time for you to do this on your own time. And I highly recommend that you do, of course. Okay, so now that we're more aware of those different ways, of what nourishment means, what it feels like. You have a better idea of that. You have a better idea of the different barriers that are keeping you from better nourishing yourself, and how nourished you are feeling currently in those different areas of your life, and also what would be possible for you if you felt more nourished. Let's talk about those nutrients that can nourish those different parts of yourself, because you're probably wondering, okay, now I get it. I want to feel more nourished, but how do I do it? So let's go there. Well, I won't have a long list of vitamins and minerals and this and that you need to be doing, because it's actually very simple. We don't need to make it more complicated than it is. And what will be nourishing to you or me will be very different, but in the way and the shape and form that it takes. But at the very core level, the essence of it, we can distill it down to those few words that I put here on the screen. Sorry. Okay. So our body, the physical, is the one that most of us are the most familiar with. We're very familiar with the food and water that our body needs. What a lot of people forget about, though, is that we also need rest and sleep. And movement and breath also are something that most of us are aware of, although we're not, even though we're familiar with those different nutrients that our body need, we may not really know what it is that our body truly needs, because we've been told in books by different people that nutrition should look a certain way, our diet should look a certain way, movement, exercise, working out should look a certain way. So the core principle of nourishment is to really reconnect within yourself so that you know what it is that your body needs. What your body needs may be different than what my body needs. We all have different needs. It all boils down to needing nourishing food, water, movement, breath, but the shape and form that it will take can differ between one person and another. And it's all okay as long as it feels good to you. And that takes practice to be able to connect with ourselves. It takes a lot of compassion and curiosity, like dropping the judgment. Sometimes we try our food and it doesn't feel so good, and it doesn't mean that we've done something bad. We can just learn from it. And okay, perhaps next time I'll do this instead, or have this amount, or have a protein before having the dessert so that my blood sugars stay more stable. Little things like that. Or same thing with a movement. Perhaps, this is not for me, but I can try it this way. And just being in relationship with your body so that you can better connect to your body's needs and better connect to how those different habits, those different behaviors, those different nutrients that you give your body, how it feels. And that goes hand in hand with building self-trust, which a lot of people don't have a lot of, because we've been used to relying on a lot of external things to know what we should do. And it can become a little bit unsettling to trust ourselves, to trust our body to tell us what we eat when we're so used to getting the answers from anywhere and everywhere around us. But it is a path, it is a process, and one step at a time, you can strengthen this connection so that it becomes clearer. We'll talk about more tools to do that in a bit. At the mind level, really what is most nourishing for our mind is to be able to create more spaciousness within our mind. And that can be done in many different ways. Many of you may be thinking of meditation right now. It is one way, and it's not the only way. But anything that allows you to slow down, to quiet your mind. It can be spending time in nature. It can be connecting with your creativity, which allows you to slow down your mind, slow down your thoughts. It can just be taking 3 deep breaths. Just the power of taking 3 deep breaths can really help quiet your mind. And it's also paying attention to the quality of the thoughts you have. And of course, our thoughts are just thoughts. They don't mean anything about us. We all have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are the same ones as the one we've had yesterday. We tend to recycle a lot of our thoughts, and it's okay. But becoming more aware of these thoughts and adding more conscious thoughts that feel good, that can be nourishing to our mind, like little encouraging thoughts. Like it's such a strange concept for most people. We're not taught how to do this. We're so taught, we just it's just ingrained within us to be harsh and hard on ourselves, to criticize ourselves and to tell us like, you should do this better. You shouldn't have done that. Look at her. She's better than you, and you need to try harder and be better and blah, blah, blah. Whether it's with mothering, with relationships, with career, with money, with the way our body looks. But the more we learn to add more nourishing thoughts, kinder thoughts, like little words of encouragement, I'm sure that for any of you that are self-critical, it may feel and sound very weird in your head to tell yourself like, I'm doing a good job. I'm doing enough. The way I am is enough. It is okay to be me. Like when I started learning how to talk more kindly to myself, it was like, so weird, because we're just not used to talk to ourselves that way. But why would it be so strange to tell ourselves those things that are so nourishing to our mind? So no matter where you're at, this is something we can all learn. If you have kids, they can learn so well to do that from a very young age. And it is something that I think we should, I wish we all learned as a kid, but the good news is that it's never too late to do so. And by nourishing ourselves with a little bit more of these kinder thoughts, it can really help quiet our mind and quiet those voices of fears. So what I'm saying is not just like woo-woo kind of thoughts. There's really a part of our brain, a primitive reptilian part of our brain that is there to protect us, to allow us to survive, and that is really good at activating the fight or flight response, so that we can be really on alert mode and make sure that we don't get eaten, by a tiger as the current, the common example. But the more we're able to nourish our mind with thoughts that make that part of our brain that is really fear-based feel safer, the more we're going to be able to feel that calm and peace and that spaciousness within our thoughts, which is such a different experience. Okay, let's move on. The heart. What is nourishing for the heart is actually permission to feel our feelings. And this is something that can be so scary for so many of us. I've, numbed and distracted myself from feeling with food mostly for years and years because I just didn't know how to deal with my feelings. I didn't know how to feel them and what to do with them. It just felt too big and too overwhelming. So if it's your case, know that it is okay. You're not alone. But that our heart, to feel alive, needs to be able to feel. And to be able to feel and receive more love, we need to be able to feel more of all of these feelings. And it's a really good idea to remove the labels from feelings. Like we tend to label feelings as good or bad or positive or negative, but really a feeling is just a feeling, and a feeling is just something, another word, emotion, is just energy in motion. It's just there. It doesn't mean anything about you, and sometimes it can actually be a very important message to eliminate something that you need to see more clearly in your life. So again, this is not something that you need to open the door to, going from 0 to 100 right away, but allowing a little bit of space, like opening the door so that you can learn how to feel more you're feeling. And a very simple way to do that is with journaling. Perhaps setting a timer for 5 to 10 minutes and say, okay, during that time, I'm going to feel my feeling, write it down. And then usually we tend to write about feelings that are heavier to feel, like the sadness, grief, resentment, anger, frustration. So once you're done, tear those pages, shred them, get rid of them, and that gives you a little cleanse. As you have that safe container of 5 to 10 minutes, then you get rid of them. Those feelings get out of your body and onto a sheet of paper, and that's it. That's a really, really good way to get started. And then learning how to feel more gratitude. That is so nourishing to the heart as well. And gratitude doesn't mean that, we don't need anything more to feel gratitude in this very moment. You can think and bring into your heart right now the image of someone or a pet that you feel unconditional love towards, and just feel that compassion and feel that gratitude towards that little being that is in your life. That feels so good. So why don't we give ourselves the gift of feeling that more often in our life? And this can be just a very simple practice. And again, a gratitude journal where you write down 3 things you're grateful for every single day can be very, very nourishing. So that's the thing with nourishment. I have people asking me like, okay, I did this and this, and I felt so good and I want more of that, but I feel like I cannot maintain that in my life. I cannot maintain that feeling of nourishment, of feeling whole. But that's why nourishment is a path and a practice. We need to integrate nourishment in our life every single day, like we need to eat and drink water every single day. Nourishment is not something that we can do once a month. Our mind, our heart, and soul need to feel to be nourished every single day as well. And it doesn't need to take a lot of time. Like this gratitude practice, you can journal it, or can simply do it in your head or on your morning commute. It just takes a few minutes, and it makes a whole difference. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And it even starts rewiring your brain to allow you to feel that gratitude and to experience nourishment at a whole new level. And let's talk about the soul now. The soul feels very nourished when you're able to notice, see, appreciate, and receive the joy and beauty that is around you. So wherever you are right now, look around you. Can you find one thing around you that brings you joy or that brings beauty to your life? Most of us will just, okay, yeah, there's, I can think of one thing, like this brings me joy, or this looks beautiful to me, but this is good. This is the first step, but it's not quite enough to fully receive nourishment from that. We need to soak in that a little bit. So whatever it is you found around you that brings you joy or brings beauty to your life, I invite you to look at it for like 20 seconds, just 20 seconds. It's not like you don't have to sit with it for 30 minutes, but 20 seconds, like really look at that thing and feel like, wow, yeah, this makes my heart smile. This makes my soul smile. This is really beautiful. And really soak in that for 20 minutes. And that's when there will be a little click within you that feels, yeah, I received nourishment, received, check. So just allow yourself to slow down to be able to receive the nourishment from the joy and beauty around you. And a sense of purpose is also, that feeling of fulfillment is really soul-based, and is something that I know a lot of people that I work with feel is missing in their life. And for many people, I'm just going to check the time to be mindful of the time, they feel like it needs to take the shape of a specific career path or a specific job that will allow them to fulfill their purpose. But really, our purpose doesn't have to take any specific shape and form. It's more about our way of being. And I would say that, I wish I could tell you exactly what your purpose is, but I don't know. But what I do know is that the more you nourish yourself on all of these levels, the clearer it will become. I have absolutely no doubts about that. So one more good reason to practice nourishment. Okay, let's do a quick little exercise together to really get hands-on and practical, and so that you have tools to bring with you after this webinar. So we have just 15 more minutes. So yeah, this little exercise will allow us to get to the root of your self-sabotage, because whether it's with nourishment or with anything else, there are some specific things and behaviors that we tend to do, our way of being, that get in the way. We've talked about the barriers to nourishment a bit earlier. That's one way it shows up, but deeper than that, what are we doing that prevents us from slowing down and nourishing ourselves? So what I invite you to do is to get your journal again, or a piece of paper, and sorry, here's a list of 28 barriers that may be present in your life right now. And it's okay if you feel like all of them are. And if you feel like none of them are, perhaps there's some degree of self-honesty that needs to be, we turn up the volume of that. Because we all have, some of these toxic habits that are getting in our way of being more of us in our life and being more true to ourselves. So, I invite you to read through that list. And for each of these toxic habits, ask yourself, is this something that I do never, or sometimes, or often? For each of them. And I'll go through them quickly. And what we really want to do is to identify the top 3 toxic habits that are the most present in your life right now, and that you are the most ready to shift. So there's acting like a victim, like, oh, it's not my fault. I have no control over this. Is it blaming others? Is it changing who you are, being a bit of a chameleon and putting on different masks? Is it being codependent and, taking charge of other people's feelings? Is it 5, complaining a lot about anything and everything? Is it creating drama? Doing what others expect? Disappearing, perhaps, just like vanishing, or feigning confusion. Like, I don't know. Or forgetting about yourself. You may notice that some of them may sound similar, but they all have a different tone and vibration. So pick the one that resonates the most with you. Is it getting anxious? Feeling like you need to give and do more? Gossiping? Isolating? Judging, whether it is judging others or judging yourself? Is it lashing out? It's like this explosion. Is it overthinking and like being all in your head? Or perhaps it's overindulging. That could be with food, with alcohol, with retail therapy, with anything that you overdo. Is it obsessing about the future or the past, which is also about getting in your head a lot, or over focusing on something, especially like that would be like over focusing on one specific area of your life, whether it's work or parenting, like putting all of your energy there. Is it procrastinating or just never trying, not even, bothering trying? Is it quitting, searching for data, staying busy, doing? Is it stopping doing the things that make you happy? Is it trying to control everything? Any control freaks out there? Is it withholding love and attention from the people around you? Or is it working harder? So like kind of the workaholic here. So which are your top three? Once you have your top three, write them down. And what we'll do is we'll draw a little tree. You don't have to be an artist here. What you want to do is basically like have branches of a tree where you write, you have three bubbles where you write down your top three toxic habits that are the most present right now. And as best as you can, draw a tree with roots at the bottom. Sometimes it's very helpful to put that on paper and to visualize it. It allows our brain to make different connections between the left and the right brain. It just allows us to see things from a whole new perspective. So everyone has their three toxic habits. So once you have them in the branches of the tree, let's try to get to the root together. I cannot know what the root is for you, but what I do know is that there's something that's connecting those three toxic habits that are the most present for you in your life right now. Usually it's some type of fear, some type of belief, some ways of thinking, something you took on from other people around you, some way of being that you think you need to be. So just look at those three toxic habits that are in those bubbles in your tree right now. And, this is not something we can try to figure out in the mind, really. Like, it's not like something that you put in an Excel spreadsheet and you do a calculation and you get it. Like, that's not how it works, because that's why we don't have an Excel spreadsheet here. We have a tree. This is a very different way to connect with our intuition. And the way our intuition works is that we cannot figure it out in our mind. We need to slow down the pace. We need to detach from those numbers, those ways of thinking, and just allow ourselves to receive. When we're trying to think, we're trying to figure out the answer. We're trying to fetch for the right answer. But right now, the energy that we want to be in is more in a receptive state where we wait for the answer to come to us. So all you have to do is look at that tree with those bubbles, with those three toxic habits, and see, okay, I just want to know, what is the connection here? What is the fear connecting all of these things? I can give you an example. For me, toxic habits that are the most present right now is perhaps obsessing about the future, staying busy, and working harder. And as I sat with that earlier, at the root, I wrote different things that I think can be connected, that are connecting those toxic habits for me in my life. It's when I'm not trusting, those toxic habits are more present. When I'm feeling alone, when I have a fear of failure and fear of being a failure, those toxic habits will show up more, and a fear that I'm not good enough. So by going deeper to the root, we can really start to see, oh, okay, like there's a connection here. And there's really a reason why I behave in these ways. And actually also in addition to that, when we notice that we start behaving in these ways, we can use that as a red flag telling us, oh, okay, I'm not trusting enough right now. I need to work on these fears so that I can feel safer. And instead of working on the habits, because if we try to keep changing the habits without looking at the root, it's just going to be like Groundhog Day all over again. Like it would just like be relentless and exhausting. But if we're able to notice that those habits are just an indication that we have root beliefs and root fears that need to be addressed, then we can work on that, and the toxic habits will naturally go away or dissipate to start with. So I'm curious to know, is any of you willing to speak about what they're noticing? Just write in the chat box if you want to talk with me here, to just share what you've noticed when you've done this exercise. And if you have, whether you've been able to uncover the root fears, the root belief, or if you have not been able to, either way, you can come on and we can work through that together if you've not been able to see what is at the root there. Any volunteers? Oh, come on. Well, we don't have that much time left, so if not, I'll just keep moving on. But I would love to hear from you whether this helps you see things in a whole new way. And if you're not able to see anything right now, I encourage you to just keep that somewhere where you can come back to it and see if you receive any additional information. And of course, once you uncover the root fears, like, okay, what do I need to do to help me feel more in trust, to not be, to feel like I'm good enough as I am. And this all goes back to nourishing ourselves. All the things I just talked about that allows us to feel more nourished will help nourish those roots so that those toxic habits will start to dissipate and no longer need to be there. Okay, so Sarah's sharing that most everything I've noticed is linked to my fear of not being good enough. That's such a common one for human beings, for sure. And Lisa, I don't trust enough, so I feel like I need to control my environment. That makes perfect sense. So what we can do to bring more nourishment, to feel more trusting, will help those toxic habits. And for Sarah, anything you can do to feel like you are worthy, because you are, will help you with those toxic habits as well. And for both of you, whether it's the fear of not being good enough or the fear, that you cannot trust, nourishment really is the path to kind of the key, the solution, the path to bringing more peace and calm and safety at the roots of these toxic habits. So thank you so much for sharing. So, at the very beginning, I talked about how the key to nourishment is really how to learn to soften. Because to be able to connect with ourselves, to listen within, to listen to our needs, we need that compassion, we need that softness. And as we do that, we are better able to nourish ourselves, which allows us to become stronger, to stand taller within ourselves. So it's really a from the inside out process. That's what nourishment is. So, when looking at your tree with those root fears, root toxic habits, you can ask yourself those questions, what is it that I need to know? What it is that I need to do? Who it is that I need to be to help me be more trusting and to feel that I'm good enough, as examples. Okay, perfect. Now I'll just give you some, I think just to have a few, 2 or 3 more slides to go. Here are 4 prerequisites that are very important to feel more nourished. If we don't have that, then it just doesn't work. It's just like any prerequisites that we need to have before taking a certain class at university. We need those prerequisites. So the prerequisites to nourishment is to feel like we matter. I matter. And every time we practice nourishment, we are strengthening that statement and that truth that we matter, because when we practice nourishment, we're saying my needs are important and I deserve to receive what I need. The second one here at the bottom left is I receive more to give more, because we've all heard this, from the Bible. I think that was, a very important book written. It says it's better to give than to receive. But what if it was better to give and receive? How about that? I get that from my mentor, Christina Riolo. I didn't make that up, but I think it's so well said, because it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can both give and receive. Number 3, caring about how we feel. the more we start caring about how we feel, the easier it will be to nourish ourselves. And that may sound weird because everybody would think, well, I don't want to feel sad and angry and all of these things. But actually, sometimes we're just so disconnected and so unaware of what's going on that we keep doing the things that generate more of these heavier, harder to feel emotions. So caring about how we feel. And what I wrote here is that it's time to stop chasing the form, meaning that usually we think that, okay, if I get to that body size, if I get to that number on the scale, if I get that job, if I find, the love of my life, if I blah, 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 then I'll be happy. So that's chasing the form with the hope that we're going to feel a certain way. But instead of that, what if we just start, we don't need to get to point B to get to point Z. We can go to point Z directly and cultivate the feeling we want to feel more of. And by practicing nourishment, this will allow us to cultivate more joy, more calm, more peace, more of these feelings that everybody wants to feel. And number 4 is remembering that softening is strengthening. We can see the softening as the ebb, the strengthening as the flow, softening and strengthening as inhale and exhale, within and without, the softening as the growing deeper roots that will nourish ourselves, and the strengthening as flourishing more from the inside out. And here are, of course, nourishment is, following those 5 steps is just, a guide, but nourishment it doesn't necessarily look that way for everyone and every single day that we practice nourishment, but it's really more as a reminder, a guide of what will help you make that a practice for you that looks like you, because that's really the goal. I'm not here to tell you this is what nourishment should look like for you. There's no more of that with nourishment. This is not nutrition, diet, rigid rules. Nourishment is softer, more fluid, and flows from day to day. But this is just a guide. So number 1, we really need to set an intention to want to feel more nourished in the first place and commit to the path of nourishment by saying, I matter. My needs matters, and it matters that I feel more nourished. Number 2 is to practice slowing down. That was so hard for me to do. I used to be like an Energizer bunny, and and it's so strange for me because right now, I could sit and not do anything for long periods of time, but I didn't used to be that way, and I'm sure that it's hard for many of you to slow down as well. So just know that it's just a matter of practicing, and the more we do that, the better we become at nourishing ourselves. Number 3, connecting with ourselves, listening, feeling into our own needs is really, really important. And beyond that, we need to be able to start giving ourselves and receiving what it is that we need. Because if we listen to our body saying, okay, yoga would feel really good today, or I actually want, a steak today, or whatever it is. But if we listen to our needs, but we don't give ourselves what we need, then, we kind of create a distrust. This is how many of us become indecisive, because we lack self-trust, because we feel like we know what we need, what we want, what we desire, but we don't give it to ourselves. We don't allow ourselves to receive it. So that creates this gap, which causes a low self-trust, a lack of self-trust. So really, really important, do your best whenever you hear a need to give it to yourself and allow yourself to receive it, to build self-trust, which is a key component of self-love and to nourishment as well. And I know that sometimes it's not possible. Like maybe your need is to go on a retreat for a full month away from your family and your kids and your job, whatever it is. I hear you, but just acknowledge the need. Like, okay, I hear you. That would feel awesome. I would love to be able to give you that. But right now what I can do is perhaps like, a 30-minute of, I don't know, whatever it is, taking a bath alone with no distraction, so just being in a relationship with your needs, those different parts of yourself that are communicating to you, and doing the best you can to acknowledge and honor those needs. And the fifth step, which is kind of the result of that, is that from the softening that happens from step 1 to 4, there will be a strengthening in your self-compassion, your self-trust, which we just talked about, the self-respect, the self-honor, the self-care, self-love, and nourishment. Those are all, very similar words with slightly different flavors that basically mean all the same thing. That means that you will feel more whole and complete, and that you will feel more like you. All right, and here I just a little quote. Nourishment is like watering your own self and feeling yourself take roots, grow, and bloom from within. And this is truly what I wish for every single of you and for the whole world, really, because I think that if we all felt more nourished, the world will be a much more peaceful and loving place to be. So the good news is that it starts with you, and that nourishing yourself makes a difference not only for yourself, but for everyone around you. So thank you for being here and believing in the power of nourishment. Oh my God, I went 4 minutes over. I'm sorry about that. Doing my best, but there's so much to share. And also, I told you all that there would be a free spot for those attending live tonight in my Nourish Your Root program. So the email address that I invite you, I'll just write it down in the chat box. It's AJ, those are my initials, at radicatanutrition.com. So just shoot me an email there if you're interested in winning a free spot to be part of my Nourish Your Root program. Nourish Your Root is a 4-month program where we spend a month talking about each of our 4 roots, our roots being the body, the mind, the heart, and soul, and really diving deep into what it means to, not only what it means, but how to better nourish those different parts of us and how to feel more nourished as a whole. So shoot me an email with the subject line webinar gift today by midnight, letting me know that you'd like to win a free spot. And well, you'll know tomorrow who gets it. And just my offerings, if you're interested in more, I have a free course at radicatanutrition.teachable.com on how to reconnect with your body to get unstuck on your healing journey. I just talked about my Nourish Your Root online course, which one of you will win a free spot for. There's also a coupon code here. I invite you to screenshot this, or I'll be sending you the PDF tomorrow to look at. But this is a very great opportunity to sign up and save $111 US. And I also have a one-on-one coaching program called Nourish to Flourish. And again, I'm offering a coupon code to all of you attending this webinar where you can save by the end of this month. If you if you go to this link, you can schedule a free appetizer call with me, so we get to talk for 30 minutes so that you can really see whether this would be something that would be nourishing to you. And that's it. So I hope we stay in touch. If we're not already connected on Instagram, hop on there and find me there at Radicata Nutrition. I love talking about nourishment at all levels every single day. I bring some inspiration to help you stay on the path and to keep practicing nourishment at all levels. Are there any questions? Thank you so much, Sarah, Mary Christine. Jeanette is there too, Catriona. Thank you for your thank yous. Your thank yous are very much felt in my heart and are very nourishing to me right now. Thank you, Lisa. Well, thank you, everyone. If you don't have any questions, I wish you a good rest of your evening, and we'll stay connected. Take care, and we'll be sending you a recording of this tomorrow. Have a beautiful, nourishing rest of your evening.